Good afternoon, everyone from Six Flags America. It is a beautiful Sunday here in early August. We are 3 months out from this park's official closing date. In case you haven't heard the news, after the merger between Six Flags and Cedar Fair, they made the decision to close Six Flags America permanently, which came as quite the shock to some. For me personally, I actually wasn't too surprised. This park sits on very valuable land, and it was always kind of considered one of the underperforming parks in the chain. I've actually been coming here since 2013, so well over 10 years. That being said, it's actually been over 3 years since my last visit. To put that in perspective, in the time since I've been to Six Flags America, I've filmed 4 seasons of Coastin' Through Europe, Coastin' the Desert, Coastin' Through Asia, and Coastin' Down Under. I have been to Plopsaland 3 times since the last time I went to Six Flags America, and I grew up 2.5 hours south in Virginia. So I do have a lot of experience with this park, but I am curious in seeing how the new things that they've added have been since my last visit, which is only a couple. They actually redid an entire western section of the park, including their SLC. We'll see if we get on it because I think I picked the busiest day all summer to be here. I actually had to park decently far away. I was looking on the app, and there's like a 60-minute wait for the SLC. Joker's Jinx is like 40 minutes. And one thing that is not helping the wait times is the fact that we do have several closed attractions, which you can view on the Six Flags app, and you can actually see wait times. You don't even have to be in the park. So here's what we're looking at today. Batwing is closed, which isn't too much of a surprise because if you've been following, I believe the fiberglass front of the train actually fell off during a ride cycle not that long ago, so it has been closed ever since, and people are wondering whether it will actually ever reopen, but that is the last Vekoma Flying Dutchman, so we will be missing out today. Cyclone is the scrambler, the swings, flying carousels closed, Harley Quinn Spinsanity, the Frisbee is closed, Quantum Cannon Rapids, that's their Whitewater Rapids, that's closed, Superman Ride of Steel, closed. Penguins Blizzard River, closed. And the Teacups, closed. So not a good look for Six Flags America. I don't know how many of those are just bad luck with it being a temporary closure or how many of them are long-term. I think Superman needs a part from Intamin, which apparently they have ordered. They have a sign that's supposedly out front telling people that, hey, just be patient, it will be back. Which, you know, for a park that's closing, they easily could take the route of saying, all right, well, we're not going to worry about the part and we're just going to let it die. So at least they are trying to get Superman back up before the park officially closes. But I will be back here on closing day 2025, so this will not be my last visit to Six Flags America. But today, I am solo, so we're going to go around the park and see everything that's going on. So right away, here's an attraction that a lot of people thought was dead in the water, but they actually brought it back to life this year, and that is Shipwreck Falls. The part's Shoot the Chutes, and it is not gonna lie today, but I know a lot of people were very happy to see this thing brought back, and at least it's able to make it one more season. So be determined whether I actually ride anything here, but the first thing I want to check out is their brand new Steamtown section. This was new last year. It's a very scream punk vibe. Looks like they have refreshed all of these facades here. I hear some very steampunk music, and directly ahead of us is Steam Whirler. This is a Zamperla Nebulous, brand new as of last year. There's a lot of talk going on which rides will be relocated and which will get trashed. I guarantee you this Nebulous will get saved. Only one season of operation, there's a lot of parks that could use a flat ride like that. Here you can see the Rapids, definitely not operating today. You also get a look at some of the dinosaurs that they put in place because they gave this a very unique theme where they said, yeah, it's like futuristic but also like prehistoric. So I guess the whole thing is that like you're going back in time through a time machine when you ride this. I don't know. Today is actually not that hot, so I'm not sure I would be riding this anyways, but I have heard it is popular. And here it is, Professor Screamore Skywinder, formerly Mindy Racer. As part of this retheme, they gave it a brand new color scheme. They also gave it all new trains, which today they're only operating with one train, and so if it really does have a 60-minute wait, then maybe I will come back to this because I am kind of intrigued in seeing how it rides, though I have heard it is still not great. Oof. Yeah, no thank you. That's probably the most amount of people I've ever seen in line for this thing. I'm not gonna lie, I'm sure it's better than the old trains, but I see the operations, they're still not that fast. For those of you who have been following the channel for a while, you might remember that the very first operations video, back when we still did this series, was here at Six Flags America, because that was the original idea for the series, was just like showcasing like how operators are dispatching their attractions, which, you know, I think the reason why this series stopped is because it's inherently a flawed system. You know, you get a different team of operators, you get different trains, it's gonna vary so much. But that being said, some parks have a worse reputation than others, and Six Flags America is notorious for having some of the slower operations in the chain. I will say, I'm very impressed with what they did with this area. If that's the last hurrah that this park ever gets in terms of new investment, I think they at least spent their money well. This whole area feels very, very refreshed. So a lot more energy here. Roar is our first attraction of the day. This GCI Wind roller coaster has always been kind of a hit or miss in my opinion. Some years it's running good, some years it's not. Let's see how it's running in 2025.
These best you guys are out of here. Sit back, relax, and enjoy a ride. Watch out for that 94 feet drop. Come on.
So just did 2 back-to-back rides there on Roar, second to back, and then the very front row. So second to back really is just, there's just nothing to it. I think from back there, you're going through all these motions, but you don't actually like feel anything. When you sit up front, there's like a couple little pops of airtime as you rise up into some of the turns, but for the most part, the ride just is very lackluster. I think that it feels like it should be going a bit faster through some of the turns. I wouldn't necessarily call the ride rough, but it definitely like kind of shakes side to side through a lot of the track, almost like the train doesn't quite fit the profile, or it's just like slightly off, which, you know, happens to wood coasters. Over time, they age, and so, yeah, I don't know, Roar, maybe this isn't its year. Well, that was a refreshing sight. I haven't seen the fire going on Firebird in quite some time. Granted, again, it's been a couple years since I've been here, but that was like in the advertising when they first announced the transformation from Apocalypse to Firebird, is yeah, we're gonna keep the fire going on. So nice to see that they haven't let that go. Let's go hop in line on the world's first B&M coaster, now a floorless coaster.
This best means you guys are out of here, sit back, relax, and enjoy your ride. I see how we have come back.
Okay, so for those of you who are following along with Coasting Through Asia and watched the Jamfuse and Fancy World vlog, you might remember their B&M floorless coaster, which is called Insane Speed, or just floorless coaster. And when I wrote that, I said that might be the worst B&M I'd ever ridden, and the only contender is Firebird at Six Flags America. So, train, after rewriting this, I got front row ride. Which one do I think is worse? I'm gonna go with the one at Jamfuse and Fancy World. I think that one really just like knocks your head around, and this has some spots, but it really could have been worse. Now, I mean, I didn't ride in the back, and it's been a couple years since I've done the back, and I remember not being too fond of it. So, you know, might come back to that later, but as of right now, I don't think it's the worst B&M. It's kind of interesting now walking around this park with a new lens, like knowing it's closing, thinking which rides are gonna still be here in a couple years, but in new locations. I'm thinking a lot of the flat rides like this. There's a swinging ship down there. I think that'll still be here. Firebird, honestly, toss up. I'm leaning towards no. I just don't know if people would save it. A couple years ago, I probably would have said yes to the drop tower, but seeing as Carowinds closed theirs, yeah, probably no drop tower. And of course, Wild One, unfortunately, I don't think that's going to be saved, which is a real shame. This is actually my first time seeing Harley Quinn in the park. It looks great. It has a presence here on the Midway and is clearly very popular. It has pretty much a full queue here at Six Flags America. This is a ride that is 100% going to get saved. These Zamperla discoveries are popular. A lot of parks in the chain already have one. This one's only a couple years old. I can already think of a couple parks that could really use one. Joker's Jinx is great. I love these Premier Ride Spaghetti Bowl coasters, and this one operates without a mid-course brake run, which means that second half, it just flies through that course. It runs smooth, great ride. And shout out to the crews there. They are actually grouping people, so every single seat on that ride is filled, which is very important because it does have one of the longer wait times in the park. It didn't end up being 40 minutes, but it was still probably the longest wait that I've done so far. Now, they only have one train on this coaster, and by that I mean like literally like there's one train. Like I don't see another train. But this is a must-do. Of the ones I've done, this is my favorite so far. So, unfortunately, this is where the park ends on this side. This wall is blocking access to Whistle Stop Park, which is this kids area on the other side of Superman. So, none of those attractions back there are open. And that's like a big section of the park, so that's like a huge chunk not available to guests, and from what I understand, hasn't been available to guests for some time now, which is just a shame. I think there's a very good chance that area never reopens to guests. With the park closing on, I think it's November 2nd. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if it's not open on a weekend in summer, not a good sign. This ride is called Riddle Me This. It is also not open today, and this wasn't even on the app. So my guess is this has been closed for some time now. I'm not by any means an expert on Six Flags America, so someone who's a local will be able to confirm, but yeah, this looks to be in no shape ready to operate. I mean, yeah, I think this has been sitting here for a bit. Oh, and here it is. Confirmation from the park that all attractions beyond this point are closed while they await parts from the manufacturers, referring to Superman, Ride of Steel, and Batwing. So here's hoping that I'll at least be able to get on Superman on closing day, because that'd be a shame if I'll never get to experience it again. So I just went for a scenic flight here on Wonder Woman Lasso of Truth, which is a great view. You can see everything, but I looked directly down right next to us, Penguin's Blizzard River. It opened. How about that? One of the rides that I did not expect to experience today actually reopened. So, hey, let's go for a ride for it, you know? I don't think the line's too long. Okay, so let me be the first to say, that line is deceiving. It does not look long. However, they are only running 2 boats. I think they only have 2 boats. So that might have been the longest wait so far. That being said, it's a nice experience. I got the top part of me decently wet, mainly hit my back and my shoulders. It was a cool experience because it doesn't look like much on the surface, but what they do is they have these like little wooden like boards or plates on the raft, so like when you pass over it, it like latches onto it, that causes you to spin, and so then you just are going like this the whole ride. And I did not expect that, so I enjoyed it. I haven't ridden that thing in a long time, so I forgot exactly how it was like. That, honestly, going back like all these years, that's one of those attractions that I would have expected to have closed long ago. So the fact that it's still here, it made it to closing year, is a little surprising. But you know what? It's fun. It is good fun. All right, so welcome to the picnic pavilions here at Six Flags America. Unbeknownst to me, I happen to be here on the same day that an Ace event is going on. They're doing like one last send-off for Six Flags America. I was not here part of the event, though I have done plenty of stuff with Ace in the past. You can go check out Ace's website. They do events all over the country. Always happy to support them. But the park's operations team was kind enough to invite me down to take a look at something that they're showcasing for the Ace event, and that is a little train museum. Look at all these. We have ride cars from not just attractions at Six Flags America, but also Kings Island and Carowinds. So we'll start with Superman's old train. You might have heard that Superman Ride of Steel received brand new trains this year from Intamin. So this right here is the old train that they have decommissioned, and it is very cool to see it from this perspective. I have not yet experienced the new trains, but I know one difference is that this sidebar right here in between the T-bar is no longer there. So in theory, that means that the new trains will be even more comfortable. Right here, you can also see a ride car from Ragin' Cajun. This is super cool. Some of you guys back in the day might have experienced this ride when it was at Six Flags Great America. They moved it here to Six Flags America. And here we go. I bet some of you guys weren't expecting to see Firehawk today, but here we are. So Six Flags America is currently home to some parts from both Firehawk and Nighthawk at Carowinds to use as parts to service Batwing. Look at this. At some point, I was probably in one of these seats. This is cool. I was at Firehawk's like closing weekend, or maybe the weekend before, back when they took that out to make room for Orion. It's cool to see it here. And this is the second train for Joker's Jinx. So I mentioned earlier that they are operating Joker's Jinx on one train. Turns out that is for reliability. They actually have more downtime when they're on two trains. They'd rather run one train if it means more uptime, which, I mean, frankly, makes sense. And then last but not least, here is our train for Nighthawk. So obviously that attraction just closed last year. So they actually had some parts from Firehawk on site at Carowinds that they just brought everything up here to Six Flags America. Yeah, look at this. One interesting point is that they can't just put these cars on Batwing because it's not an exact match. You can't just like copy and paste it. So that's why they are strictly just using it for parts so that they can keep Batwing open. Which hopefully does mean that Batwing will reopen. I mean, at this point, I think it's just a waiting game, but fingers crossed. I mean, the fact that they have all these parts here, I think is a good sign. So if all goes well, then hopefully we'll be able to get on Batwing one last time before the park closes. Okay, line was a lot better. I got my ride here on Professor Screamore's What is this called? Professor Screamore's Skywinder. So those new trains do make a world of a difference. This was one of the worst Vekoma SLCs I had ever done, and I think it is officially off the list. It is far from one of the worst now, in my opinion. Now, is it a glass smooth ride like Great Nor'easter? No. I think the trains still do, it's almost like a stutter where it kind of goes back and forth. So there's no side-to-side headbanging anymore, but it's still when you hit certain moments it kind of like jolts you a little bit. I sat in row 2, so I can't speak for how it is in the back. I know though they did try to do some improvements with the track when they refurbed this attraction, like shaving down little pieces, but it's still an older SLC. There's only so much you can do. And a little fun fact that we actually learned from people from this park is one of the reasons they decided to refurb it is because this coaster sits on land that if they were to take this out, they wouldn't be allowed to build something new in its place because it's like a preserved woodsy area. The attraction sits like right on the border of it. So that's one reason why they chose to revitalize this coaster. And I think if your choice is revitalize it or rip it out, but you can't put anything else in its place, then yeah, I think they made the right decision. And clearly with this being one of the longest lines in the park, the public seems to like it. There are a couple people I heard talking about it that, hey, had no idea that this was Mind Eraser. They thought it was a whole new coaster altogether. So, hey, it's amazing what a new name and a fresh coat of paint will do, right? One final section that we need to visit before we head out, and that is Mardi Gras. So we got Ragin' Cajun directly ahead. That is their spinning Wild Mouse, as mentioned earlier. Probably will pass on that one right now. I'm mainly heading here for Wild One. This is a ride I'm definitely gonna miss once it's gone. So here's a little history for you guys. Wild One is, I believe, currently the oldest operating roller coaster in America, since we have the coaster at Lakemont, Leap the Dips, SB&O. This ride had an old home in Massachusetts. It was called Paragon Park. This ride was known as Giant Coaster. It closed in 1985, operating there since 1917. Think about that. We recently visited a place in the Netherlands called De Werbeck, and we have that featured in the upcoming Coastin' Through Europe Season 4. And they have the oldest traditionally operating steel coaster in the world, and that was 1930. So this thing was operating before the oldest traditional steel coaster. Think about that for a second. That is crazy. It's so cool that Six Flags America was able to preserve it, and it's gonna be sad to see this thing gone, because I don't see this getting relocated at all. Even though they did it once, relocating a wind coaster is an ordeal, especially when it's something this old. Wild One is such a gem. I'm gonna miss that ride. You know, it's not the craziest, the biggest, the baddest, the fastest, even the smoothest. But for everything that it does offer, it's fun. Good airtime pops. Just very, very solid old-fashioned wind roller coaster. Only one ride today. Park is getting ready to close. Train! Again! This thing is noisy. Look at this thing. That's not even a traditional like steam engine. This thing's like a tank. What is this? It looks like a tractor. So with that, I've completed the loop here at Six Flags America. Park is just about ready to close. You can look out and see the big front entrance all the way down there. It really is a pretty entry. I mean, there are some areas of the park that I think could still use some touch-ups, but I mean, at this point, they're not getting them. So, you know, you make the most with what you got, right? And I think that, like, for what is the current state of this park, I think that I feel pretty good about everything that I did. And you know, I had fun. It was nice getting back here after a couple of years. It's just a bizarre feeling coming here, knowing that it's closing soon. And again, we will have a vlog from closing day. I think that's gonna be even weirder. But not gonna lie, I feel like the atmosphere is gonna be kind of fun. Like, I feel like it's gonna be a lot of enthusiasts, a lot of people there to, like, you know, give it the final send off that they deserve. So I actually think that's gonna be pretty cool. Now, the future of this land is pretty interesting, because I think they were expecting to sell it to some real estate developer who's gonna put in a bunch of houses, right? Because the land here is super valuable. You're in PG County, just outside of DC, not too far from Baltimore. This is prime real estate. However, the county, or maybe it was the city, I can't remember, said they are designating this land for entertainment or like amusement usage only, which means you can't just put in a bunch of houses and call it good. So I'm actually very curious in seeing who is gonna buy this land, because from my understanding, it officially goes up for sale this month in August. And I'm wondering, like, is someone gonna buy the park as is, and like some of the assets with it, meaning some of the attractions? Like, is it gonna be like a Hershend situation? Or is the Six Flags Entertainment Corporation gonna pull up all their attractions that they wanna keep, bulldoze most of the rest, and then someone is just gonna buy the land and build up from the ground up? And I think that leaves a bit more like options, but this land is so expensive, I don't know how many operators would even be able to afford this land. We're talking over 500 acres. I think this park specifically uses just over 100. I think it's like 120, 130, something like that. But there's a lot of room here to work with. My favorite theory, and let me preface by saying I don't think this is actually gonna happen, but my favorite theory is someone said Disney should buy it and bring back the Disney's America concept. You know, great location for a park like that, and that was something that they were originally thinking about back in the day, but didn't happen because of land restrictions. Here we are with a county that wants an amusement park here. And what better name to bring in? You know, what company can afford it other than Disney? That being said, I don't think it will happen, but it's kind of a fun idea. Here's something I will give a little bit more potential to. You guys know how Universal's building a kids park in Dallas? They could bring that over to Washington, D.C. and Maryland. That could be kind of interesting. That'd be pretty different than everything else. And, you know, there's a lot of families here. Maybe a Universal Kids Park could do pretty well. I could see that. I'll give a little bit more possibility to that than maybe the Disney concept. It seems like Universal is putting different locations of various things around the U.S. Now that we have the Kids Park going in Dallas, we have Horror Unleashed in Vegas, we have Horror Unleashed in Chicago. So maybe they will be looking at the Washington, D.C. area and Bowie, Maryland. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. It's going to be interesting to watch. But come out here to Six Flags America, pay your final respects, come get those last rides in, and I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to stay tuned for more here at Coaster Studios, and I'll see you next time.